Alright, hey guys, Simon here and welcome back to my Minecraft design school. So today we have a little something from someone by the name of Wesley. So here's what he wrote to me. He says, "Hey Simon, I have a little world with a house I build some stuff in it in my spare time." Actually he could use more punctuation. So, okay, let's try this again. I have a little world with a house I build. Okay, I have a little world with a house, full stop. I built some stuff in it in my spare time, and it would be awesome if you could check it out and give me some feedback. I have never studied architecture, although I've always wanted to. I have been watching your videos since the beginning and learned a lot from them, but I'm pretty sure I could use a little bit of extra help. Smiley face. Smiley face. Greetings, Wesley. So that's what he said. Now what's the problem? He didn't actually ask any questions. So all he did was he sent me his world and he says, "Hey, have a look," and then he didn't ask any questions. Okay, so then what I did, well, let me just click on this. So what I said was, okay, "Hi Wesley." This is me, writing back to him. I say, "Well, do you have any questions or problems with your builds? I just had a quick look at your world, and I think what you have is fairly typical of most people who haven't studied architecture or given it too much thought. If you have questions that I can answer, I think it will be more useful for you and for others as well." And then I continue to say, "Well, which part of your world do you like and don't like? What were you thinking about or trying to do when you built those things? What would you like to build in the future?" Right, so that's what I said to him, and then he replies, "Hey Simon, I think my biggest question is how to fill in blank spaces inside a building and outside. When I started this world, I was planning on making a nice house and maybe a city in the future. I still have a lot of plans in this world, like shops, restaurants, and all that stuff. So maybe if you could give some feedback about my current house, so I know if I'm doing it a good way and what I could change in the future with other builds." Still no real questions. And I think that is what our friend Wesley really should consider, is asking the right questions. And I don't mean this, like I don't say that in a mean way. I don't say that to say, how silly you can't even think of a question. No, this is actually legitimate. As a beginning designer, not like most people don't, when you first start out, one, you build things without thinking about them too much. Like, you have to train yourself to think about what you're building. And also, you have to train yourself to ask the right questions, because asking questions is part of the design process. So what the design process, actually let me just put some signs down. How big does this need to be? Let me just put it like that. Alright, so the design process basically is have an idea and oops, wrong button. And then you build the thing, right? And then you, oops, wrong one. And then you ask, is it good? And how can it be better? And then you go back to having an idea. So this is the design process, basically. You have an idea, you build it, and then you ask yourself, is this good and how can this be better? And then taking those ideas, you go back and modify your original idea. You say, okay, I've built it, I think I can make it better by doing these things. So you incorporate that into your idea and then build it again. And then as you go around and around the circle, eventually each each time you build it, it gets better and better and better and better until eventually you have a really, really good build. So this is basically the design process. Designing is not just some magical thing that happens. It's something you actually have to work through over and over again until you get it right. Wait, what is... Oh, mock briefing is on. Stupid Enderman. So, I mean, he says he's built a house here, he's built a few things, and he just wants us to comment. And this house is interesting, right? It's good. But I mean, our friend Wesley, he didn't ask me any specific questions. So, in a way, he's done this, and he's done this. He hasn't done this. So, and he needs to do it for himself too. Like, I mean, I can do it, or I can show him, I can ask him the questions, and I can show him how to do it once, but eventually you're gonna have to learn to do it for yourself. And he does, and any designer has to be able to do that. So I mean, he's got ideas like little pet houses. What is this? A tool shed. Alright. And so that's his house. There's like a tree house there. So he's using different materials. There's stone, there's smooth stone. Smooth stone roofs are a little bit interesting. Oops. What's this here? So that's his YouTube ID if you want to look it up. So that's his house, and he's got a doorbell. Little hole, don't know what to do here. What do you mean this? It's just an entryway, you can just leave it like that. Although you might want to make the roof lower as well, just so that there's... usually main spaces will have a tall ceiling, and then side spaces will have a lower ceiling. But that's not a big deal. An entryway? Look, little hole, don't know what to do here. Like, think of your own house, or think of other buildings. What usually goes inside the front door? I mean, you've got a little chair here. Usually you have like a shoe rack where people put their shoes. Maybe you have a coat rack where people hang their coats. So a lot of houses have a little hallway near the front door. Let's see what he says here. Big empty living room. Well, you've identified the problem. It's empty. Or I mean, I don't know if you think that's a problem, but again, if you are able to say that it's a big empty living room, so what's the problem? Is it too big? Is it too empty? If it's too big, then maybe you can divide it into smaller rooms. If it's too empty, then think about what things you might have in the living room and put them in. I mean, you can't have televisions in Minecraft. Maybe you can. Like, would you have a small table here? Would you have some furniture, some decorations, paintings, pot plants? You know, just think about what usually goes in living rooms and just put them in. I mean, you've already identified the issue here. What's this? Okay, music. And you know, if it's too big, you can always divide it into smaller rooms. So the kitchen, potions and things. So here you've identified what goes in the kitchen. Like, you have a lot of stoves, you have, you know, sinks and you know, benches and fridges and containers. So you know, the kitchen, you've identified what goes into it. So why can't you do the same for the living room? You know, there's a lot of empty space there. What's going on here? Dining room. Alright, this is the big table with a few chairs. That's good. What is this? Another kind of living room. Alright, so now we need to think about this. You have a house with 2 living rooms. What usually goes in the house? Alright, so... oh, look at that. Bedrooms, bathrooms, and attic. That's good. Master bedroom. Your rooms are really big. So, you know, what else might you have in the master bedroom? Room 2. And I mean, if these rooms are too big. I don't know if you feel they're too big. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But if you feel they are, why can't you divide it into a few more rooms? It's not, you can do that, right? Room 1. Wow, these rooms are huge. But at the same time, I don't think that's a big deal. I mean, you don't have to. You can have big rooms. That's not a, there's nothing wrong with it. Again, empty attic. So, what usually goes in an attic? From what I understand, most people have a lot of junk in their attics. Like they end up using their attic as a storage area. Maybe that's what this should be, a storage area. The bathroom is on the top floor. That's a little bit strange. It's a little bit strange to have the bathroom at the top of the house, because what happens is, if you have any leaks, the water will leak into the house, and you have to get the water up to the top of the house, which is difficult in terms of plumbing. So that's a bit strange, but again, not a big deal. These aren't big deals. What is this? Sauna? Wow, look at that. That's pretty cool. Resting garden. So you've got some interesting things going on here. Another secret room under construction. I mean, you talk about building a city, but you spend a lot of time on one house. One house doesn't make a city. Are you sure you want to spend this much time on one house? Or do you want to build more but simpler houses just so you can get your city going? But this is, as I said, this is fairly typical of the kind of things that people build when they don't have design training. And again, that's not your fault or anything. It's just what people do. Like, they'll build things, they'll think of something and they build it, and they think of one thing and they build it, and then as they're building it, they think of something else and they build it, and they think of something else and build it. What happens when you do that is there's no master plan. And so then, maybe one thing you want to do is just to step back and look at the thing. Animal farm, that's pretty cute. So there's animals here, there's a little bit of a farm, but the size of it is not quite consistent with the size of the house, right? And when I say you might want to step back and look at it, you literally might want to step back and look at what you have. You have basically one house. And if you want to build a city, you're going to have to figure out where to build the other houses, right? I don't know, have you thought about that? Like, have you considered where you want the other things? You've got a bridge here, that's interesting. But where would you build the rest of the city? And what goes in a city, apart from your house? Usually there's like a town hall, maybe there's a town square. A lot of cities have churches, if you're religious. You have multiple houses, maybe you have a school, maybe you have a market, maybe you have a park. So if you're thinking about building a house, or if you're thinking about building a city, maybe it's time to stop spending so much time on one house. And there's another thing here too, I don't know what that is. But first I want to look at this tree house. You call it a little tree house. I don't know how you feel about this tree house. Again, we go back to the design process. At some point you step back and you ask yourself, is this good? And how can this be better? Let's just come up here. So the tree house is literally a house in the tree, which is alright. But so ask yourself, oh, I came out the wrong way. Ask yourself, is this good? Is this what you imagined when you first built it? Is it better or worse than what you first imagined? And how can you make this better? And those aren't like they're not simple questions, they're actually quite complicated. And if you can answer them, then you're basically a good designer, because you can take something and make it better And that basically is what design is. So, a treehouse. What's, if there's anything wrong with this, what's wrong with this? And I'll give you a moment to think about that. Is this what you imagine a treehouse would look like? If it's not what you imagine a treehouse would look like, then in what way is it different from what you imagine a treehouse would look like? And how should you change it to make it how you want it? Right? So these are the questions that you want to learn to ask yourself in order to, just be better at designing, because that's what designing is asking these questions, answering them, and then using that insight to build better things. Alright, so here's the answer. The house is bigger than the tree. That's not usually how tree houses are. If you think of a tree house in the real world, actually let me just pause that a little bit there. I'll go into Google and I'll type in treehouse. Okay, my browser is slowly working. Okay, treehouse, and I'll put that into Google image search and look for some images of tree houses. Right. Okay, so there's a lot of different tree houses. Some are pretty cool. Fascinating. See, even I didn't think of a lot of this stuff. And you should do this too. I mean, I can't show you what I'm seeing on Google because I'm recording Minecraft. So just go into Google and type in treehouse and just look at what's there and compare that with this. For the most part, you'll find that tree houses are, in the real world, they'll have the tree bigger than the house, at least taller than the house. What you have is a house on top of the tree, which is a bit strange. Usually you have a tree and then in the middle there's a house. So the problem, if there's a problem, if you feel there's a problem, I don't know if you think that, I think the problem here is the house is too big or the tree is too small. Right? So let's go back inside. Is the house too big or is the tree too small? What if we made this house smaller? The thing is we can't. Right? Look at this. We can make the house a little bit smaller. We can't make the house very much smaller than this, otherwise it won't be a house anymore. So if the house can't be smaller, then the tree has to be bigger. And the problem with that is you started off with a normal Minecraft tree, which is you put a sapling down and then you grew it, right? But normal Minecraft trees are not big enough for a decent tree house. So the solution to our design problem, if you want to try to build another tree house, is you have to construct a bigger tree. It won't grow naturally. Like a normal tree will only grow that big. You need it to be at least twice as big, maybe 3 times as big, and then you can put a house in the middle of it, and then the proportions will look right. You see how that works? So, by asking ourselves, why is this strange, and then looking at other tree houses and trying to figure out why this is a little bit odd, we can figure out how to make it better. And so then the next thing you do, if you want to rebuild it, is to make it better. And if you do that, eventually you'll get a pretty awesome treehouse. And like every time you build it, you go back, look at it, ask, how can this be better? Like what's strange about this? What's wrong with this? Which parts don't work? And how can I make it better? So that's the design process, and you can do the same thing with everything you build. Like you can ask yourself, is the lounge too big? Is it too big? Is it too empty? Should I put more stuff in, or should I put more rooms in the house? So the lounge is smaller, but I have more rooms. So like, why is the bathroom on the very top floor? Why is it in the attic? Is it because you forgot to build a bathroom until you got to the top? What if you made the lounge smaller and put a bathroom on the ground floor, which is how normal houses usually are? Would that then solve your lounge problem? maybe it will. So I mean, these are, I mean, I'm not, like, I really want to avoid telling you what to do, because that's not the point of this kind of this design school. It's not me telling you what to build, but more you learning how to ask yourself and tell yourself what to build. Because that's what a good designer does. Like, a good designer doesn't have someone else telling him what to do. He has to figure out for himself how to make his work better. Bridge to nowhere. P.S. I learned to make this because of you. Well, good. It's good to learn. I mean, I don't care if you learn from me or anyone else. The important thing is we learn and we get better. So bridges are useful because, you know, you don't have to swim anymore. I like roads and I like bridges. But where would you put the road? I mean, it's one thing to have a bridge. Should you have a back door in your house? Should you have a road around here? Perhaps. And then if you have a bridge on here, are you gonna build something on the other side? Well, that would make sense. Alright, let's see what this thing is. I am not sure what this is, but it looks kind of interesting. Anyway, let's look at some of the other things you've built. You have sponges and melons and pumpkins. I'll be honest, I don't know what this is. What is this? Does it matter? Why are there giant squares of pumpkins and melons? And we'll go back into the vault later on, not right now. And then there's a nether brick house. I mean, you're experimenting with different materials. That's pretty good, I like that. Nether castle with end and nether portals. Oops. A lot of fire, that's not very safe. Library and roof. There's a library. So there's the nether portals, there's the end portals. We're not gonna go into them. Portal room, library and roof. Portal room balcony, alright. Library and roof. Okay, so interesting. But again, we can see the you know, when I look at this, I see it as a symptom of the typical non-designer thought process, which is, I have an idea, I'll build it, and that's it. Like you know, it's interesting. It's you know, it's got a theme to it. It's a nether theme. There's a lot of fire. It's kind of dangerous, and then there's portals to dangerous places, and then there's iron bars, and then it's all look kind of imposing and then scary. So all of that is, I mean, it's interesting. It all fits together. But then if you step back and look at it, then why is that there? And how does that relate to this? Because you did talk about the city. Maybe the city thing is a new idea. Maybe you haven't thought very much about it. But if you want to think about it, you know, how would that fit into your city? Where are the roads? And it's the stepping back and looking at it and asking those questions. I mean, those are the things that will separate an average Minecrafter from a good designer. Alright, so I can't think of much more to say. This video might be a bit shorter than the others. Let me just read your message again. How to fill in blank spaces inside a building and outside. When I started this world, I was planning on making a nice house. Maybe a city in the future. Okay. Yeah, like filling spaces. Well, you know what usually happens in designing is you figure out what spaces you need before you start building. That's how real world design usually works. And coming back to the design process, like having an idea is actually more difficult than it seems. Like figuring out your brief is not just not, you don't just think, okay, house, and you build it. If you go to an architect and you say, okay, I need you to design me a house, he'll ask you, how many rooms, how many bedrooms do you need? How many bathrooms do you need? How big do you want your kitchen to be? How big do you want your dining room to be? What do you want to do in your lounge? Not even just how big, but what do you want to do in your lounge? Because if you're going to ask an architect to design a house for you, he wants to design that house for you. So he wants to get to know you. He might ask you, so what are your hobbies? What's your job? If your job is to work with children, do you need a space for children? If your job is to work with animals, do you need a space for animals? What are your hobbies? If your hobby is if you're into carpentry, or then do you need a workshop? Or if your hobby is building cars, then do you need a really big garage, right? If you're into swimming, do you need a swimming pool? If you really enjoy gardening, then would you have a bigger garden? So this kind of having an idea is not as simple as that. You want to really sort out your brief. You want to really flesh out that story. So here, like, you have a house. Like, whose house is this? Is this your house? Who lives in this house? Right? Because your question is how to fill in the blank spaces. There shouldn't be blank spaces, because you should only make spaces if you have a purpose for them in the first place. So who owns this house? At the moment, I don't know. I don't know who it is, and I don't know his character. He's got flowers, he's got a well, he's got animals, he's got a big lounge. So maybe decide for yourself a story for this person. Like, maybe it's a house for a farmer. If it's a house for a farmer, then it'll be a farmhouse. There'll be all sorts of farms and animals and things. Maybe you have a big family, in which case you might have a lot of bedrooms. Maybe a big dining room with a big dining room table. Whereas if you make a house for a hermit, it might be a lot smaller. Maybe he is self-sufficient, so he'll have a bit of food, but it'll be by himself, so he only needs one bedroom. Or if it's a house for a warrior, then maybe he has lots of weapons, he has armor, maybe he has a forge, he has anvils, maybe he has he has lava, and he has all sorts of tools, and then maybe he has out back, he has target dummies and then practice dummies. And so if you just kind of decide for yourself a person for whom you're designing this house, then all the ideas will come to you. It won't be blank anymore, because then you can think of all these things you can put in. So when you have an idea but you have a blank and you have blank spaces, that means you haven't actually got a sufficiently fleshed out idea. Does that make sense? Like, if you have a city, it's like you haven't started building a city yet, but what kind of city is it? Have you thought of that? Is it gonna be a medieval? Did I spell that right? Is it gonna be a medieval city? Is it gonna be a futuristic city? Is it going to be a necropolis? Oops, that's an S. Is it going to be is it going to be a village? Is it going to be a town? Is it going to be a metropolis? Is it going to be you have to decide what kind of city it is. And then once you decide what kind of city it is, then all the other ideas will come to you. Like, is it going to be a castle? Is it going to be a dense city? Is it going to be a lot of people living in a small space? Is it going to be a spread out city? Is it going to be a rural town? Is it going to be a is it going to be a mining town? So if you can't figure out what it is you need to put in to these spaces, then ask yourself, well, what kind of house is it? What kind of city it is? And that's, you're having an idea. Maybe I should change that. Have an idea, but also flesh out the idea. So don't just have a one-word thing. I'm going to build a car. Well, what kind of car is it? Is it a fast car? Is it a slow car? Is it a big car? Is it a small car? Does it have 4 wheels? Does it have 6 wheels? Does it have 2 doors? Does it have 10 doors? You know, what kind of car is it? Maybe it has legs. I don't know. But you know, you just don't just go a car and then build it, because that's not enough. It's not enough for you to go on. So flesh out the idea, and then build the thing, and then go through the cycle. Yeah, I don't. I can't really think of anything else. But maybe it's something to try out. Like, you know, ask yourself these questions. What kind of thing is it? Is it good? Is it bad? How can it be better? How can it be different? If it's different, would it be better? And it's the sort of thing you have to practice too. Like actually, it's story time. I remember when I first got into architecture, first year. Like, they just tell you to make something. They'll give you a design brief. I think I don't even remember what the brief is. It's not important. Basically, they say, okay, build a sculpture somewhere, and then just go do it. And then all these little kids, and I was a little kid too, so all of us little kids go and then make some models and draw some things, and then we make some things, and then we go to the tutor and say, hey, look what I made. And then the tutor just goes and says, okay, what is this? Why is it like this? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why is this metal? Why is it wood? Why is it circle? Why is it not square? Why this? Why that? And that's basically the design process. It's you have an idea, you build a thing, and then some guy just keeps asking you these random questions. And at first, like, the kids aren't used to it. At first, I mean, I guess it took me like a few minutes to figure it out. Or maybe, I don't remember how long it was, but you know, sitting there, talking to the tutor for like half an hour, eventually you realize, oh my goodness, I have no idea what I'm doing. Right? Because the tutor's asking you these questions, and you realize, I never even thought of that. I never even thought of that. So then, I mean, the tutors are quite nice about it, I remember. Some of them aren't. Most of them are quite nice about it. And they don't really need to tell you, but you know. After talking to your tutor for half an hour, you know that you need to think about what you're doing a lot more. Because the next time you go back and talk to your tutor, you need to have answers to these questions, right? If you're going to go back with the same clueless expression and not having answers, you're going to fail this class. So that's basically design school. And I mean, if you might be uncomfortable with this at first, and that's natural, because usually when you walk down the street, people don't challenge you like that. Like, people don't stop you in the street and say, hey, why are you walking here? Why are you going to the shop? You know, why are you walking like this? Why are you driving that car? Like, you know, you don't ask people these questions, but as a designer, you have to. In order to be a good designer, you have to kind of ask these questions, and you have to learn to ask yourself. Don't even have someone else ask it to you. Ask yourself, because it's only when you answer these questions do you realize, okay, I need to think about these things, and I need to solve these problems. And then if I have a good answer for this, then I have a good design, because I have answered the problem of the design. Things like, you know, what goes in the house? You know, why am I building this house? Who is this house for? If this house is for this certain person, then how does this house meet the needs of that person? And so once you kind of have these questions in your head and you're asking yourself that, and you've built a house that can answer all those questions, then you have a good house. So yeah, so that was my first year in architecture. and really, it's not for everyone. Maybe you're not maybe that's not for you, and that's fine. Maybe you just play Minecraft and that's enough for you. But if you want to be a designer, you have to do that. And then some of the kids, they get really angry too, because they're not used to it, right? Like, it feels like someone's challenging you, and at that moment you realize that you actually don't know anything. And it's not a comfortable feeling. You know, when someone challenges you and say, hey, why'd you do that? And you can't answer them. You realize, oh my god, I'm stupid. I don't have an answer. And but that's how it is. But you know, if you're a first year at architecture school, you are stupid. Like well, I mean, you're not. You got into architecture school, that's not easy, but you have to come to terms with the fact that you have a lot to learn. And when you have a lot to learn, it means that there's a lot you don't know right now. And you have a lot to learn. And so, again, with any design, if you want to be better, if you want to design better, first you have to accept the fact that right now you're not designing very well, that you have room to improve. And when you can do that, and when you're comfortable with that, then you'll improve. Because then you can accept the fact that, hey, what I have right now is not as good as it can be. If I keep trying, if I keep doing different things, if I keep experimenting, the next thing I build will be better than what I have now. And what I have now is not very good. So once you are comfortable with that, then you become a designer, right? Because and everything you do will be better than the last thing you did. And yeah, and that's how you become a designer. And you know, at the beginning of this video, and when I first saw this world, the first thing I thought was, you know, this guy is typical of most people who play Minecraft who are not designers. And you know, that's what I see. What I see is someone who's have an idea, he's built stuff, but then he hasn't taken the other step of asking, how can this be better? So that's it. I mean, that's the secret to being a good designer. I don't know if that's what you wanted to hear, but that's how it is. Okay, I think that's enough. Is that a good story? It's a true story. True story, man. Architecture school. Alright, yeah. I'll see you guys. If anyone else has anything to send in, questions or words for me to look at, I'll see you guys in the next video, whenever that happens. This is SCKChui's Minecraft Design School. You send me your questions and your save file or your server IP address, and I will give you architecture design advice and feedback. See the video description for more details. Seriously, you should read the description before you send me anything. Thank you.